Patrick Hicks Music Stories presents Every Grammys Ever, the 10th Annual Grammy Awards, February 29th, 1968. So the Grammys are now almost a full decade old, and one could argue that they were already out of touch. You had last year's Sinatra win over the Beatles, the countless classic rock and roll artists that had never even been nominated. The Grammys really needed a good year this year. The event was hosted by the actor and comedian Stan Freberg, who way back in 1960 had written that credo that was officially adopted by the Grammys, all about how album sales and charts don't matter, it was all about artistic integrity. Maybe he can right this ship. You have a couple interesting things right off the bat. For one, it's the first Grammys that is held in February, which is the current month that it's always held. It's the only Grammys that was ever held on a leap day. It's the first Grammys in history where Henry Mancini is not nominated for anything. We saw Aretha Franklin getting her first nominations and wins with the song Respect, which won Best Rhythm and Blues Solo Vocal Performance Female and Best Rhythm and Blues Recording. And guess who finally won a Grammy at this year's awards? Elvis Presley, the quote-unquote king of rock and roll who caused so much scandal in the 50s by gyrating his hips, wins his first Grammy in the gospel category, Best Sacred Performance. The Best New Artist Award is back. One of the bands that should have gotten nominated last year when they didn't have a Best New Artist Award, Jefferson Airplane, did get nominated this year, but they didn't win. The award ended up going to the country singer Bobby Gentry, who had released the enormously popular Ode to Billie Joe in 1967.
And then she said, I got some news this morning from Choctaw Ridge. Today, Billie Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
That song was nominated for Record of the Year, but it lost to the song Up, Up, and Away by the Fifth Dimension. It was also nominated for Song of the Year. That category was also won by the song Up, Up, and Away by the Fifth Dimension. Also, Fifth Dimension was nominated for Best New Artist, and even though they won Song of the Year and Record of the Year, they lost to Bobby Gentry in that category. And now the nominations for Album of the Year. Bobby Gentry is nominated for her album Ode to Billie Joe. Vicky Carr is nominated for It Must Be Him. Ed Ames is nominated for the album My Cup Runneth Over. And then, for the third year in a row, we have Frank Sinatra and the Beatles nominated. Sinatra is nominated for his album Francis Albert Sinatra and Antonio Carlos Jobim. And the Beatles are nominated for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But before we get to the winner, let's talk about some albums that were released in 1967 that were not nominated. There's going to be a lot here. This was the summer of love. There's so much great music. Jimi Hendrix's Are You Experienced? Forever Changes by Love. Pink Floyd's debut, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. You have two albums by The Doors, the first self-titled record and Strange Days. You had Velvet Underground and Nico, which had no shot at ever being nominated, but it's worth mentioning here. The Who Sell Out. The Rolling Stones Between the Buttons. Honestly, you could probably just keep going and going, but let's get to the winner. And the winner is The Beatles with Sgt. Pepper. The Grammys actually did the right thing. It's one of the most innovative and influential albums of all time, even if you could argue that Revolver did all the same things a year earlier, but it's clearly the winner here, and I think saves the Grammys from becoming a total joke. During that year's The Best on Record special, Andy Williams, who later will host the Grammys, said this is the Oscar, the Emmy, the Tony of the recording industry. Which is something now that we just accept. The Grammys have been around for decades, they're very well established, but that wasn't inevitable. And it's possible that another Beatles loss here might have knocked the Grammys off course from becoming what they are. So it seems like the Grammys are moving in the right direction. Will they make all the right decisions from now on? Of course not, but this one feels good. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time for the highs and lows of the 11th Annual Grammy Awards in 1969.